May 8th, 1991, Portland, Oregon, Pioneer Courthouse Square. 76-year-old Vernon Ellsworth Caldwell is yanked from the Veterans Platform in the middle of the VE Day commemoration ceremony. Two men in civilian clothes tear the decorations from his jacket: the Bronze Star, the Purple Heart, the European African Middle Eastern Campaign Medal. The high school marching band keeps playing the Stars and Stripes forever. Vernon doesn't resist, only whispers, asking Evelyn why she would do this. His stepdaughter stands in the crowd, watching as they lead him away. In her hands is a battered composition book with a green marbled cover. Her mother's journal, found 3 weeks after her death. A journal where, across 36 pages of fading ink, 7 names are recorded. 7 people Vernon Caldwell betrayed to the Gestapo in occupied France during the summer of 1944. 7 people executed within the first week of their arrest. 7 graves in a cemetery outside Lyon that Evelyn's mother visited every year without ever explaining why. Today, those 7 would have been between 66 and 73 years old. But they stayed forever young, while the man who killed them lived to see Victory Day. Until this morning. Evelyn Margaret Caldwell was born in Portland, Oregon on April 19, 1960. Her mother, Dorothy Louise Hartwell, worked as a chemical engineer at the Albina shipyards during the war, then transitioned to civilian industrial work at a paper mill. Her stepfather, Vernon, worked as chief accountant for a metal fabrication plant. Vernon entered their lives when Evelyn was 3 years old, in 1963. She didn't remember her biological father. He died in a construction accident in 1961 when she was barely 1. Vernon became her real father. Firm but fair. He taught her long division, took her ice skating at Lloyd Center, helped with homework and college applications. When Evelyn married Garrett Morrison, a mechanical engineer from Boeing's Portland office in 1982, Vernon gave the young couple the downstairs unit of his duplex and moved into a studio apartment downtown. When their daughter Claire was born in 1985, he spent hours pushing the stroller around Laurelhurst Park so mother and daughter could rest. Evelyn loved him. Genuinely. Without reservation. Dorothy Louise Hartwell died on April 12, 1991, from a massive stroke. She was 71 years old. She'd worked until her final year, retiring only in 1989 at age 69. The funeral was quiet. Few close friends remained. Maybe a dozen former colleagues from the mill attended. Vernon sobbed over the casket so violently they had to hold him up. Evelyn could see he'd loved her. 43 years together, from 1948 to 1991. An entire conscious lifetime. After the funeral, they began sorting through belongings. Vernon wanted nothing, telling them to keep it all for Claire, insisting he didn't need anything, that he'd be following Dorothy soon enough. Evelyn and Garrett took photo albums, Dorothy's books, some dishes. They donated the clothes. Papers would be reviewed separately: birth certificates, diplomas, war bonds, old letters. On April 16th, 4 days after her mother's death, Evelyn sat at the kitchen table in her mother's apartment sorting through a stack of correspondence from an old steamer trunk. The journal lay at the bottom, beneath a bundle of V-mail envelopes from the 1940s. Green marbled composition book cover, corners worn soft, pages yellowed but text legible. Her mother's handwriting. Evelyn would recognize it anywhere. The same script from lunch notes tucked into her school bag, birthday cards, grocery lists magnetized to the refrigerator. First page, January 1953. I learned the truth about Vernon. I cannot continue living with him, but I must, for the sake of a future child, if I can have one. Evelyn froze. In 1953, she didn't exist yet. She wasn't born until 1960. What child was this referring to? She turned the page. Second entry, February 1953. Found documents in his footlocker. Real name, Vernon Hutchins Blackwood. Worked as auxiliary police in occupied Lyon, France, 1943 to 1944, attached to the milice and German occupation authorities. Changed identity in New York City in 1947. Paid a document forger 3 gold wedding bands. I don't know whose. Now, he's Vernon Ellsworth Caldwell. Born in Spokane in 1915. Lost his papers in a boarding house fire. I verified. The real Caldwell died from pneumonia in a Portland VA hospital in 1946. Vernon stole his life. Before that, he killed 7 people. Evelyn read and couldn't believe it. This was insane. Had her mother lost her mind before dying? But the handwriting was steady, dates sequential, text coherent. She kept reading. Third entry, March 1953. I'm from Philadelphia originally. French on my mother's side. Marie-Claire Dubois from Lyon. Spent 1938 through early 1942 living with my aunt's family in Lyon while working as a translator for an American export firm. Left France in March 1942 on one of the last refugee ships before total occupation. Came home to Philadelphia. Joined the workforce, ended up in Portland in 1943 for shipyard work. After liberation in September 1944, I tried contacting my aunt's family. No response. Finally got word in 1946. Aunt Simone killed in an air raid in 1943. Uncle Laurent died of typhus in a work camp. 7 of their neighbors, the Chevaliers, the Roussels, the Merciers, executed by the Germans in August 1944 for resistance activities. I learned this from State Department cables when I was being vetted for a defense contractor position in 1947. They investigated everyone who'd been in occupied territory. I wasn't there during occupation, but I saw the casualty lists. 7 names. 7 people. Marguerite Chevalier, age 32. Luc Roussel, age 29. Simone Mercier, age 36. André Chevalier, age 44. Henri Roussel, age 51. Colette Mercier, age 20. Etienne Mercier, age 23. All neighbors from Croix-Rousse, Rue Bourdeau. I remembered them. Remembered their faces, their voices. Colette had been my friend. We'd gone to cafes together, practiced English and French. When I finally got to Lyon in 1947 on business, I went to their graves. 7 markers in Loyasse Cemetery, 1 row. Someone asked if I was family. I said neighbor. They told me. They'd been betrayed by an auxiliary policeman named Blackwood. Vernon Blackwood. American-born, spoke fluent French through his mother, worked with the milice. He reported they were hiding weapons for the resistance. It was true, they were, but he's the one who turned them in. They were arrested July 18, 1944, executed July 25, 1944, all 7, at Fort Montluc. I memorized the name, Blackwood. When I met Vernon Caldwell, in Portland in 1947, I suspected nothing. He was charming, kind, attentive. We married in 1948. I became pregnant in 1950 but miscarried. Doctors said no more children possible. I accepted it. We lived quietly, comfortably. Then, in January 1953, I found his footlocker in the storage space. Opened it thinking old army gear. Found documents. Discharge papers under the name Vernon Hutchins Blackwood, issued in Lyon, France, 1945 by U.S. military occupation authorities. Photograph, my husband, younger. Letter of employment from Vichy Milice headquarters with German commandant's stamp. Identity card as auxiliary police. Everything. I understood who he was. I understood he'd killed my friends. Evelyn set the journal down. Her hands trembled. The kitchen was silent except for the wall clock ticking. Outside, traffic hummed on Burnside. Kids played in the park. An ordinary Portland evening. April 16th, 1991, 9 o'clock at night. Evelyn took a cigarette from an old pack in her mother's drawer, lit it even though she'd quit in 1987 when Claire was 2. Drew in, coughed, drew again. Her mother had lived with a killer for 43 years, knew he was a killer and stayed silent. Why? She continued reading. April 1953 entry. I cannot go to the authorities. If I report that my husband was a collaborator, they'll prosecute him. That's justice. He deserves it. But if I reveal I knew for 4 months and said nothing, I'll be charged as accessory after the fact. I'm 33 years old. I want to live. I want to have a child. Doctors say it's impossible, but I believe I can. I want a daughter. I'll name her Evelyn, after my grandmother. If I go to the police, I lose everything. I'll never have that child. So I stay silent. I stay silent and hate myself for it, every single day. But I stay silent. Next, May 1953. I went to Lyon, found Rwas cemetery, found their graves. 7 markers. I brought flowers, asked forgiveness, said I knew who betrayed them but couldn't bring him to justice. They didn't forgive me. I feel it. The dead don't forgive. But I'll return every year. I'll tend the graves. It's all I can offer. Entry from June 1953. Vernon suspects nothing. He's a devoted husband, makes breakfast, walks me to the bus, meets me after work, brings flowers, kisses me goodnight. I lie beside him and imagine him putting on that auxiliary police armband, walking into Gestapo headquarters, writing reports about Marguerite, Luc, Simone, all 7. Collecting payment, money or rations or favors, going home and eating dinner. I imagine this and I'm physically sick. But I can't leave. Because I'm afraid. Because I want a child. Because I'm weak. I know I'm weak, and I hate myself for it. Next page, July 1953. Vernon suggested relocating to California or Seattle. Says Portland feels claustrophobic, wants a bigger city. I refused. Told him we have good jobs here, we're settled. Truth is, I'm afraid if he feels threatened, he'll disappear. If he runs, I'll never find him. But if he stays close, I can monitor him, watch him, turn him in whenever I find the courage. Haven't found it yet, but I know I must. Someday. Then the journal showed brief annual entries. 1954. 1 year passed, same situation. I'm silent, he lives peacefully. Went to Lyon, tended graves. Can't do more. 1955. 2nd year of silence. Vernon got promoted at work. Respected man. War veteran. I stay silent. 1956, 1957, 1958. Short notes, same essence. Mother traveled to Lyon, maintained graves, returned, stayed silent. 1959. 16 years since the executions. They'd be 48 to 67 now. Marguerite, 48. Luc, 45. Simone, 52. André, 60. Henri, 67. Colette, 36. Etienne, 39. Living people. Vernon stole their lives, and I helped him hide it. 1960. Still hoping for a child. Doctors laugh. I'm 41, but I believe. November 1961 entry. Miracle happened. I'm pregnant. 9 weeks. Doctors don't believe it, but it's real. I'm 42 years old. I'll carry this child to term. I'll have a daughter. I'll name her Evelyn. And I won't go to the police. Because my daughter won't be born in a prison visitation room. She won't know her stepfather is a murderer and her mother is a coward. She'll have a normal life. She'll have both parents, even if one is a monster. But she'll never know. Never. Evelyn read through tears. Her mother sacrificed everything for her sake. Protected a killer so her daughter could grow up in a complete family. Lived 38 years beside a man she despised so Evelyn would never suspect. Never let slip, never hinted, Not once in 29 years. April 1962. Evelyn born April 19th. 7 pounds, healthy. Vernon cried holding her, called her his miracle. He doesn't know she's the reason I didn't destroy him. Every time I look at her, I think, you saved his life. You're 3 days old and you saved a murderer's life. I should hate you for that. But I don't. I love you more than anything in this world. 1963 to 1970 entries. Brief notes about Evelyn's childhood. First steps, first words, first day of school. Between those entries, one line each year. Went to Lyon. Graves maintained. They were X years old when they died. Would be Y now. The mathematics of stolen life, calculated annually. 1971. Evelyn is 9. Smart, curious, loving. Asks why I travel to France every summer. I say visiting old friends. Not quite a lie. The dead are my oldest friends now. 1975. Evelyn is 13. Became a teenager. Vernon taught her to drive in the church parking lot. Patient, gentle, good father, excellent father, and killer. Both true simultaneously. I don't understand how. 1980. Evelyn graduated from Reed College, English literature degree. Vernon gave the commencement speech as distinguished alumnus from the business community. Standing ovation. Evelyn so proud. I applauded too. Clapped for the man who executed 7 people. This is my life now. 1982. Evelyn married Garrett. Beautiful ceremony. Vernon walked her down the aisle. She cried, he cried, I cried. Everyone cried. Afterward, I went to the restroom and vomited. Couldn't stand the symbolism. Murderer giving away innocent girl. But I smiled through the reception, danced with Vernon, played my role. 1985. Granddaughter Claire born. Held her in the hospital. Vernon held her. 4 generations in one room, if you count the dead, because I always count them. Marguerite never had children. Colette never married. Etienne was engaged when they arrested him. Vernon stole their futures. Now he holds my granddaughter and she smiles at him. 1988. Evelyn asked me today why I never talk about the war years. Said she's curious about my time in France. I told her it was traumatic. I prefer not to discuss it. She understood, dropped it, didn't push. My daughter is kind. She got that from me, not from Vernon. He's capable of kindness too, but it's selective, situational. Mine is constitutional. That's the difference. 1990. Vernon had a health scare. Heart attack, mild. Recovered fully. Evelyn was terrified. Stayed at the hospital 3 days straight. I stayed too. Not because I was worried he'd die. I was worried he'd die before facing justice. 37 years I've carried this. 37 years of silence. I'm 70 now. How much longer can I wait? January 1991. New Year. Evelyn asked me to write down family history for Claire. Genealogy, stories, memories. I said I would. But what do I write? Your great stepfather killed 7 people? Your grandmother knew and did nothing? What story do I tell? March 1991. I'm dying. I know it. Feel it in my chest, my bones. Doctor says I'm fine, but I know. Body knows when it's failing. I have maybe weeks, maybe days. Need to decide. Do I tell Evelyn? Do I go to police? Do I take the secret to my grave? If I die with it, Vernon lives free forever. He's 76, could have another decade. Will die peacefully in his sleep while Marguerite, Luc, Simone, André, Henri, Colette, Etienne died against Fort Montluc's wall. That's not justice. But if I reveal the truth, Evelyn's world collapses. Her father becomes a monster. Her childhood becomes a lie. Her daughter grows up knowing her beloved great-grandfather was evil. Can I do that to them? Final entry, April 10th, 1991. Decided. I'm leaving this journal where Evelyn will find it. Not telling her directly, can't bear that conversation. But she'll find it when sorting my things. She'll read it. She'll know. Then the choice is hers. I've carried the burden 38 years. She's strong enough to carry it now. Stronger than me. She'll do what's right. She'll bring justice. I believe that. I have to believe that. Because if I don't, then these 38 years meant nothing, and I can't accept that. The dead deserve more. 2 days later, Dorothy Louise Hartwell died. Evelyn sat at that kitchen table until 2 a.m., reading and rereading. April 17th now. Her mother dead 5 days. The journal in front of her felt like a bomb. No, a loaded gun. Pointed at Vernon. Pointed at her family. Pointed at Claire's innocent childhood. Pull the trigger, everything explodes. Don't pull it, carry the weight forever. Like her mother did. But her mother wrote those last words. She'll do what's right. What's right. Not what's easy. Not what's comfortable. What's right. Evelyn called in sick to her job at the library the next day. Told Garrett she needed time to process her mother's death. Not a lie. She drove to the downtown library, went to the periodical archives, found international newspaper databases, searched for Lyon, France, 1944, executions, resistance. Found articles. Found names. Found confirmation. July 1944, 7 French citizens executed at Fort Montluc for aiding the resistance. Names matched her mother's journal exactly. Marguerite Chevalier, Luc Roussel, Simone Mercier, André Chevalier, Henri Roussel, Colette Mercier, Etienne Mercier. Ages matched. Dates matched. Next, she went to the county recorder's office. Searched for Vernon Ellsworth Caldwell. Found marriage license from 1948, property records, tax documents. Birth certificate from Spokane, 1915. Requested verification from Washington State. Clerk said it would take 3 weeks. Evelyn said she'd wait. April 25th, the response came. No birth record found for Vernon Ellsworth Caldwell, born 1915 in Spokane or anywhere in Washington State. No record at all before 1947 Portland City Directory listing. Person appeared fully formed in Portland documentation. 1947, age 32, employment at metal fabrication plant. No prior history. Ghost until that year. Evelyn requested Oregon death records for Vernon Ellsworth Caldwell. Found one. Died November 1946. Portland, age 31, pneumonia. Buried at Willamette National Cemetery. Visited the cemetery. Found the grave. Small military marker. Real Caldwell served in the Pacific Theater. Died stateside after discharge. Her stepfather stole a dead veteran's name. Next, stepdaughter. Found a private investigator through the Yellow Pages. Explained she needed information about someone who'd been in France during the war. Didn't mention why. Paid $300 cash. Investigator came back 2 weeks later. Records from U.S. military occupation authorities in France, declassified in 1975, showed Vernon Hutchins Blackwood, American citizen, born 1915 in New Hampshire to American father and French mother, worked as translator and auxiliary police for Vichy Milice in Lyon, 1943 to 1944. Investigated for collaboration after liberation, but released due to insufficient evidence and American citizenship. Occupation authorities decided sending him back to the States was easier than prosecution. Deported to New York, September 1945. No subsequent records. Investigator asked if this was the guy she was looking for. Evelyn said yes. Paid another $200 for copies of everything. Now she had documentation. Proof Vernon Caldwell was Vernon Blackwood. Proof Blackwood worked for collaborationist police. Proof 7 people were executed. Connection clear but not legally conclusive. No direct evidence Vernon himself made the reports that led to arrests. Circumstantial. Might not hold up in court. But morally? Absolutely damning. Evelyn sat in her car outside the investigator's office, holding the folder, shaking. Her stepfather, the man who taught her to ride a bike, who scared away her first boyfriend with a shotgun cleaning on the porch, who cried at her wedding, was a Nazi collaborator, had betrayed 7 people to their deaths, then stolen a dead man's identity, and lived peacefully in Portland for 44 years. Raised her, loved her, or at least loved the idea of her. Could a man who did what he did truly love anyone? Evelyn went home. Garrett was playing with Claire in the backyard. She watched through the kitchen window. Normal family, normal life. Pull the trigger, it all ends. She made dinner, fed her family, put Claire to bed, read her a story, kissed her goodnight. Went to the bedroom, locked the door, took out the journal and the documents, spread them on the bed, read through everything again. Her mother's words, "She'll do what's right." Evelyn knew what right meant, knew what her mother wanted. But could she do it? May 1st, 1991. Evelyn called the Portland FBI field office, asked to speak with someone about war crimes, was transferred 3 times, finally reached Agent Donald Pritchard, War Crimes Unit. Made an appointment. May 3rd, she met him downtown. Federal Building, 12th floor. Small office with file cabinets and a window facing the river. Pritchard may be 55, gray suit, patient eyes. Evelyn laid out everything. Journal, documents, investigator's report. Spoke for 40 minutes without stopping. Pritchard took notes, asked clarifying questions, made copies. At the end, he told her this was substantial, but he needed to be honest. Her stepfather was 76 years old. The crimes occurred 47 years ago in a foreign country during wartime. The victims were French nationals. The perpetrator was a naturalized American citizen who served in occupation police, not regular military. Justice Department had been reluctant to prosecute these cases unless evidence was absolutely ironclad. What she'd given him was compelling but circumstantial. He could open an investigation, but he couldn't promise prosecution. He asked if she was prepared for that. Evelyn said she was prepared for whatever came. She just needed to tell someone. Her mother carried this 38 years. She couldn't carry it alone. Pritchard nodded and told her she wasn't alone anymore. They would investigate. He'd be in touch. 2 months of silence. Evelyn went to work, came home, played with Claire, had dinner with Garrett, smiled at neighbors, attended church. Normal life. Meanwhile, somewhere in a federal building, her stepfather's past was being excavated. She wondered if Vernon knew, if he sensed something. But when she saw him at Sunday dinners, he seemed the same. Cheerful, affectionate, telling stories about the old days at the plant, asking about Claire's preschool, offering to help fix Garrett's lawnmower. Same Vernon. Always same Vernon. Monster wearing grandfather's face. July 12th, 1991. Agent Pritchard called, asking if she could come downtown to discuss findings. July 15th. She met him again. Same office. He had a thicker file now. He told her they'd corroborated most of her information. Vernon Blackwood did work for Vichy police in Lyon. They found additional records showing he filed at least 12 reports on suspected resistance sympathizers between February 1943 and July 1944. 7 of those reports directly led to arrests that ended in executions, the 7 people her mother documented. They also found testimony from French survivors who identified him. 3 witnesses still alive, now in their 70s, living in Lyon. They remembered him. They'd testify if needed. They had enough for prosecution. Justice Department had authorized charges under the Holtzman Amendment, stripped citizenship for anyone who assisted in persecution during the Holocaust or Nazi occupation. They'd denaturalize him first, then consider criminal charges for crimes against humanity. But he needed to prepare her. This would be public. Press would cover it. Her family's name would be attached. Her daughter would know. He asked if she was ready for that. Evelyn thought of her mother's final words, thought of 7 graves in Lyon, thought of Claire, innocent and 6 years old, thought of what right meant. She told him yes, she was ready. August 2nd, 1991. Federal marshals arrived at Vernon Caldwell's apartment at 6 a.m., arrested him on charges of fraudulent citizenship procurement and material misrepresentation in immigration proceedings. Evelyn wasn't there, couldn't bear to watch, heard about it from Garrett, who heard from a neighbor. Vernon taken in handcuffs, confused, saying there must be a mistake. Marshals reading charges. Vernon Hutchins Blackwood, also known as Vernon Ellsworth Caldwell. You are charged with obtaining United States citizenship through fraudulent means by concealing your activities as auxiliary police in Vichy-controlled Lyon, France, 1943 to 1944, during which you participated in persecution of civilians. Vernon stopped protesting, went silent, knew it was over. Garrett came home that day, saw Evelyn at the kitchen table. He asked if she knew about this. She nodded. He started to ask something else, then stopped. Realized. He said she'd reported him. She nodded again. Garrett sat down heavily and told her Vernon was her father. She corrected him. Vernon wasn't her father. He was a man who killed 7 people and stole a dead veteran's identity. Her mother knew. She left her the journal. She wanted her to finish what she couldn't. Garrett was silent for a long time. Finally, he asked what they would tell Claire. Evelyn said they'd tell her the truth when she was old enough to understand. That sometimes people who seem good do terrible things, and that justice matters more than comfort. Garrett nodded slowly and asked if Vernon would go to prison. Evelyn said maybe just deportation. She didn't know. She didn't care. She just needed him to face it. Needed the world to know what he did. The trial took 6 months. Denaturalization proceedings, federal courtroom, downtown Portland. Press covered extensively. Local war veteran accused of Nazi collaboration. Portland man faces charges for World War II betrayals. Stepdaughter turns in alleged collaborator. Evelyn's name in every article. Neighbors whispered. Old friends from church stopped calling. Some people understood, sent letters of support. Others thought she was a monster. How could you betray your own father? But Vernon wasn't on trial for the killings directly. Statute of limitations, jurisdictional issues, international law complications. Just for lying on his citizenship application. Just for stealing an identity. The rest came out in testimony but wasn't prosecuted. 3 survivors from Lyon came to Portland, testified, identified Vernon in the courtroom, described seeing him in milice uniform, described him entering their neighborhood, described arrests that followed his visits. One woman, Geneviève Lohan, 73, pointed at him and said in broken English that this man came to her house in 1944. He asked where her brother Luke was. She said she didn't know. He smiled and told her she should tell him or she'd hang with her brother. She didn't tell. They found her brother anyway. They shot him July 25th. This man killed her brother. Vernon sat expressionless. Didn't deny. Didn't confirm. Said nothing. His lawyer argued wartime chaos, unclear allegiances, that Vernon was just a translator trying to survive, that there was no proof he intended harm. Prosecutor presented the reports, 12 signed documents with Vernon's name, detailing names, addresses, suspected activities. Methodical. Deliberate. Not survival. Collaboration. February 28, 1992, the judge ruled, citizenship revoked. Vernon Blackwood to be deported to France within 90 days. No criminal charges filed. Justice Department declined, citing expense and complexity of international prosecution for crimes nearly 50 years old. Vernon would return to France as a stateless person, stripped of American identity. French authorities could prosecute if they chose. Probably wouldn't. He'd die free, but not American. Not Vernon Caldwell. Vernon Blackwood again. His stolen life returned. Evelyn attended the sentencing, sat in the back row. Vernon turned, looked at her. Their eyes met. He mouthed the word, "Why?" She didn't answer. Didn't owe him an answer. But she thought, because 7 people died. Because my mother suffered 38 years. Because justice delayed isn't justice denied. It's just late. After the ruling, reporters surrounded her outside the courthouse. They asked how she felt, if she regretted turning him in, what she would tell her daughter. Evelyn told them she'd tell her the truth, that her great-stepfather killed 7 people, that her grandmother knew and stayed silent to protect her, that she couldn't stay silent, that doing the right thing sometimes costs everything, and that it's worth it. Then she went home. Vernon was deported April 30th, 1992. Evelyn didn't go to the airport, didn't say goodbye. Heard later he went to a refugee processing center in Paris, then disappeared into the administrative system. French authorities opened an investigation but closed it after 6 months. Insufficient evidence for prosecution after 48 years. Witnesses mostly dead. Records destroyed during liberation chaos. Vernon ended up in a church-run retirement home outside Marseille. Lived there until he died of pneumonia in December 1994, age 79. Buried in a pauper's grave, unnamed section. No marker. Evelyn learned this from Agent Pritchard, who called to notify her. He said he thought she'd want to know Vernon had passed, and asked if she wanted to arrange for remains to be returned. Evelyn said no. Let him stay there, unnamed, like his victims were for years. Life continued. Claire grew up, started school, made friends, asked questions. She asked why she didn't have a great-grandpa anymore. Evelyn told age-appropriate versions. He did something bad a long time ago and had to go away. When Claire was 8, more details. He hurt people during the war and lied about it. At 12, the full story. Evelyn sat her down, showed her Dorothy's journal, explained everything. Claire cried and said he'd been nice to her, that he played with her. Evelyn told her people can be good and bad simultaneously. What matters is which side wins when it counts. For him, the bad won. For Grandma Dorothy, the good won eventually. For her, she hoped the good won. She'd let Claire decide when she was older. Claire asked if she'd done the right thing. Evelyn said she did what she had to. Whether it was right, she'd never know for certain. But she knew she couldn't have lived with staying silent. Every July 25th, anniversary of the executions, Evelyn thought about going to Lyon. Never did. Too expensive, too far. Claire was young, work was demanding, life got in the way. But she sent flowers through an international service. 7 bouquets, delivered to Lyon Cemetery, placed on 7 graves. Marguerite Chevalier, Luc Roussel, Simone Mercier, André Chevalier, Henri Roussel, Colette Mercier, Etienne Mercier. Every year, without fail. Included a card each time saying the flowers were from the daughter and granddaughter of Dorothy Hartwell, and that they remembered. Never got confirmation the flowers arrived. Trusted they did. Years passed. Claire graduated high school, went to University of Oregon, studied history. Wrote her senior thesis on collaboration and resistance in occupied France. Dedicated it to her great-grandmother Dorothy, who carried an impossible burden, and to 7 people whose names she knew. Marguerite, Luc, Simone, André, Henri, Colette, Etienne. Graduated 2007. Became a teacher. Married in 2010. Had a son, Nathan, in 2012. Evelyn became a grandmother at 52. Held Nathan in the hospital. Thought about her own mother holding her in 1960. Circles completing. Thought about Dorothy holding baby Evelyn while knowing the man beside her was a killer. How did she do it? How did she smile and pretend? Evelyn couldn't imagine that strength. That awful, necessary strength. 2015. Evelyn retired from the library at 55. Garrett retired the same year. They traveled, saw grandkids. Normal retirement. But every July 25th, she stopped whatever she was doing, marked the day, told Garrett that today was the anniversary, 1944, 7 people died. He always nodded, understood without needing explanation. In 2016, she finally went to Lyon. Garrett came with her, flew into Paris, took the train south, checked into a hotel, slept off jet lag, then went to Rwas Cemetery. Bought 7 bouquets at a flower shop near the gates. Walked the rows until she found them. 7 graves, 1 section, just as her mother described. Markers simple, names and dates. Marguerite Chevalier, 1912 to 1944. Luc Roussel, 1915 to 1944. Simone Mercier, 1908 to 1944. André Chevalier, 1900 to 1944. Henri Roussel, 1893 to 1944. Colette Mercier, 1924 to 1944. Etienne Mercier, 1922 to 1944. Evelyn placed flowers on each grave, stood in the center, said aloud in French. Claire had taught her the pronunciation. Je m'appelle Evelyn. Ma mère était Dorothy. Elle vous connaissait. Elle n'a jamais oublié. Moi non plus. Je suis désolée. I am Evelyn. My mother was Dorothy. She knew you. She never forgot. Neither will I. I am sorry. They stood there 20 minutes. Garrett held her hand. Didn't speak. Didn't need to. Finally, they left. On the train back to Paris, Evelyn looked out the window at the French countryside and thought about how her mother did this every year. 38 times. Alone. Carrying the weight of silence and complicity and impossible choice. She did it once and was exhausted. How did her mother bear it? Returned to Portland. Life continued. Claire had a second child, a daughter, Emma, in 2018. Evelyn now had 2 grandchildren. Nathan started school, asked questions about family history. Claire told him age-appropriate versions. When he was 7, in 2019, he asked why Grandma sent flowers to France every year. Evelyn sat him down, explained simply, a long time ago, 7 people died because someone bad told on them. Her grandma knew those people. She couldn't save them, but she remembered them. Now she remembered them too. Someday he would remember them too. Nathan asked what their names were. Evelyn listed them. Marguerite, Luc, Simone, André, Henri, Colette, Etienne. Nathan repeated them carefully and said he'd remember. 2020, pandemic, world shut down. Couldn't send flowers to France, international deliveries suspended. First time in 29 years the graves went untended by her family. Evelyn worried. Called the cemetery, managed to reach an administrator. Asked if the graves were maintained. Administrator said yes, French state maintained all war memorial graves. Evelyn relaxed. In 2021, restrictions lifted, sent flowers again. Doubled the order, 14 bouquets, 2 per grave, to make up for the missed year. April 19th, 2022. Evelyn turned 62. Claire threw a party. family, friends, neighbors, cake, presents, speeches. Nathan and Emma made cards. Evelyn smiled, laughed, thanked everyone. But that night, alone in the bedroom, she thought about how her mom died at 71. She had maybe 9 years left at that rate. Maybe more. Maybe less. What would she do with them? She'd done what her mother asked, brought justice, however imperfect, kept the memory alive. But what next? The answer came quietly. Keep going. Keep remembering. Keep sending flowers until you can't anymore. Then pass it on. July 25th, 2022. Evelyn sent flowers as usual. But this time she also wrote a letter to Claire, explained everything in detail, things she'd never fully articulated before. Why she'd reported Vernon, how hard it was, the guilt and relief and anger and sadness all mixed together, how she still dreamed about him sometimes, still heard his voice calling her Evie, still felt his hand on her shoulder teaching her to ice skate, how she missed the version of him that never existed, the clean version, the father version, the innocent version, how she mourned a ghost. Ended the letter saying that when she died, Claire would decide whether to continue this, whether to send flowers, to remember their names, to tell Nathan and Emma the truth. She couldn't demand it. She could only ask. 7 people died. Her mother remembered them 38 years. She'd remembered them 31. If Claire remembered them even 1 year after she was gone, that would be enough. That would be victory. Because the dead don't forgive, but the living remember. And memory is the only justice that lasts. Sealed it, put it in her will file. Insurance. 2025, Garrett died. Heart attack, sudden, at home. 69 years old. Evelyn was devastated. 43 years married. Same length as her mother's marriage to Vernon. The symmetry was eerie. But her marriage had been honest, built on truth, not lies. That mattered. She mourned hard, took months to recover. Claire and the grandkids stayed with her, helped her through. By fall, she was functional again, living alone in the house she'd shared with Garrett. Quiet. Too quiet, but manageable. July 25th, 2026. Evelyn, now 66. Sent flowers to Lyon as always. But this year, Claire asked to join the ritual, virtually. They video called while Evelyn placed the order online. Claire said she wanted to teach Nathan and Emma about this properly, asking if they could make it a family tradition where every July 25th they gathered, said their names, and remembered. Evelyn said she'd like that. So they did. That evening, Claire's family and Evelyn on video call. Claire told the story, simplified for kids but honest. 7 people, bad man, great-great-grandma's burden, Grandma Evelyn's choice. Then they said the names together, all 5 of them. Marguerite, Luc, Simone, André, Henri, Colette, Etienne. Nathan was 14, Emma 8. They listened seriously. Afterward, Nathan asked if she thought she'd done the right thing, turning in her stepfather. Evelyn thought carefully and told him she thought she did the necessary thing. Whether it was right, she'd never know. But it was necessary. And sometimes that's all we can manage. 2028. Evelyn's health declined. Diabetes, arthritis, heart issues. Moved into assisted living. Claire visited twice a week. Grandkids on weekends. Still sharp mentally, just body failing. July 25th that year. Couldn't manage the online ordering herself. Claire did it. Sent the flowers, showed Evelyn the confirmation. Evelyn smiled and said, 37 years. Counting her mom's 38, that was 75 consecutive years someone from their family had remembered them. 75 years. Claire said Nathan promised he'd continue when he was grown, so that would be another 50, 60 years minimum. Evelyn said that was good. They deserved that. Evelyn Margaret Morrison, née Caldwell, died March 14, 2033, from congestive heart failure. She was 72 years old, buried in Portland, Riverview Cemetery, beside Garrett. Small funeral, Claire's family, a few old library colleagues, church friends. Quiet. Respectful. In the eulogy, Claire talked about her mother's courage, saying she faced an impossible choice and made the hard decision. She valued justice over comfort, truth over peace. She taught her daughter that doing right isn't the same as doing easy, and that memory is the most powerful act of resistance against injustice. Nathan and Emma, now 21 and 15, sat in the front row and understood. Sorting through Evelyn's belongings, Claire found the sealed letter from 2022. Read it. Cried. Showed it to Nathan and Emma. They talked for hours about what it meant, whether they'd continue the tradition. Nathan said they had to. Grandma did it 37 years. Great-great-grandma did it 38. They couldn't let it stop now. Emma agreed. So July 25, 2033, first year without Evelyn, they sent flowers to Lyon. 7 bouquets. New cards saying the flowers were from the great-great-granddaughter and great-great-great-grandchildren of Dorothy Hartwell. That they remembered, always. That evening they gathered, Claire, Nathan, Emma, Emma's boyfriend, and said the names. Marguerite, Luc, Simone, André, Henri, Colette, Etienne. They held a moment of silence. Then Nathan said he'd teach his kids to do this too when he had kids. They'd know these names. This wouldn't stop with them. 2040, Nathan married. 2042, his daughter born, Dorothy, named after her great-great-great-grandmother. 2045, Dorothy was 3, old enough to start understanding stories. Nathan told her about great-great-great-grandma Dorothy, who lived in France and knew 7 people who died. About great-grandma Evelyn, who made sure everyone remembered. About how their family sends flowers every year to people they never met because memory matters. Dorothy listened carefully and asked what their names were. Nathan told her. Marguerite, Luc, Simone, André, Henri, Colette, Etienne. She repeated them slowly and said she'd remember. July 25th became Family Day. Every year, whoever was available gathered, in person or by video call. They ordered flowers to Lyon. They said the names. They told the story to the next generation. Marguerite Chevalier, Luc Roussel, Simone Mercier, André Chevalier, Henri Roussel, Colette Mercier, Etienne Mercier. 7 people who died in 1944. 7 people who'd be over 100 years old if they'd lived. 7 people remembered by strangers decades and continents away because one woman couldn't stay silent and another woman couldn't let them be forgotten. The story ended. Vernon Hutchins Blackwood is dead. Dorothy Louise Hartwell is dead. Evelyn Margaret Morrison is dead. 7 executed resistors are dead. Everyone involved is dead. But memory lives. And while memory lives, justice doesn't die. Even if it arrived too late, even if it couldn't restore life, it arrived. And that matters. Because in a world where killers live comfortably, justice is the only thing separating us from chaos. Evelyn understood this. Dorothy understood this. Claire understood this. Nathan understood this. And young Dorothy, 3 years old in 2045, was beginning to understand this. Generation after generation, memory after memory, flowers on 7 graves, once a year, July 25th, forever.